The cake had been cut, the wine poured, and the laughter was louder than it should have been for a room full of people who barely knew each other. It was Zoe's birthday, and everything should have been perfect. But perfection was an illusion. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and you can just sense something is off? The air is thick, charged with unspoken tension, and no matter how many smiles people plaster on their faces, you just know something's broken. That's how I felt that night. I was in the middle of a toast, half drunk on the glass of wine I'd barely remember drinking, trying to hold the entire evening together, trying to pretend like everything wasn't crumbling just under the surface. But Zoey was somewhere else. I could see it in the way her eyes flicked across the room, avoiding mine, like she didn't even recognize me anymore. She wasn't the woman I'd married, or at least, she wasn't the woman I thought I knew. And deep down, I knew it. There's a special kind of pain when you're married to someone, and you feel them slipping away. It's not sudden. It's not a bomb going off. It's slow, gradual, like the erosion of a coastline. You don't see it happening at first, but you wake up one day and realize the foundation you've built everything on is gone. That night, Zoe's 30th birthday, was supposed to be our moment to reconnect. But the cracks were already showing. You can only ignore the signs for so long. The table was set, our closest friends gathered around, but Zoey, my wife, seemed distant. I didn't think much of it at first. She had always been the strong one. I guess I took that for granted. So when I stood up to give my speech, I wasn't thinking about how things had changed. I just thought, this is it. This is my moment to remind her why we're still together. I cleared my throat. To Zoey, I began, raising my glass. My partner, my best friend. You've always been the one to keep us going, to make everything seem like it's going to be okay, even when things fall apart. I can't imagine my life without you. You're everything to me. The words were sincere, even if they felt hollow as they left my mouth. They were the words I wanted to believe, the words I needed to believe. But the truth was, it wasn't enough anymore. Zoey didn't smile. She didn't even look at me directly. Her gaze was fixed on the table in front of her, her fingers nervously tapping the edge of her glass. There was a long silence that followed my toast, stretching for what felt like an eternity. Everyone was waiting for her to react. They were waiting for the happy, gracious Zoey to rise to the occasion. But she didn't. Then, almost as if she had been waiting for me to break, she lifted her eyes to meet mine. They were cold, colder than I'd ever seen them. There was no warmth there, no familiarity, just a wall. And that wall hit me like a slap across the face. Better if you'd stayed silent, she said, the words slicing through the room. The laughter died down immediately. The clinking of glasses ceased. The air, once light and carefree, turned heavy. I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't know what to say. I was stunned, frozen in place. The room was looking at me, looking at her. But Zoey didn't care. She had already said it. I opened my mouth, but the words caught in my throat. I could feel the sting of her words, deep in my chest. Every part of me wanted to fight back, to yell, to demand an explanation. But instead, all I could do was stand there, like an idiot, while everyone else shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I could hear the whispers around the table, the soft murmurs of concern, but it was like the noise was coming from a distant place. The world around me seemed to blur as I looked at Zoey, who was now glancing down at her wine glass as if she hadn't just thrown a grenade into the middle of our evening. I should have just left it. I should have let it go. But in that moment, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Maybe it would have been better if I'd said no at our wedding. I blurted out before I could stop myself. The words felt like poison on my tongue, and yet, I couldn't take them back. I couldn't unsay them. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone went still. No one knew how to react. Zoey's eyes snapped up to meet mine, her face a mixture of disbelief and hurt. "You think you should have said no?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. But there was something in it, something sharp, that cut through me like a blade. I swallowed hard, trying to find the words, but nothing came. The realization of what I had just said hit me like a ton of bricks. What had I just done? Zoey stood up abruptly, knocking her chair over in the process. She turned her back to me, walking away without a word. The room was still. I didn't follow her. I couldn't. What was left to say? That was the moment I knew. I knew something had broken beyond repair. That was the moment I realized there was no going back. I stood there, in the middle of the room, as if I had just made a fool of myself. The shock from Zoe's words still rang in my ears. Better if you'd stayed silent. How could she say that? I had just bared my soul to her in front of our friends. And yet, there it was, the cold truth in her eyes, the way her voice cut through me like a blade. I looked around the room, but no one met my gaze. I could feel their eyes on me, but none of them dared to say a word. I wasn't sure if they were too shocked to speak or if they had just picked a side without saying it out loud. I knew Zoe's friends were loyal to her, and mine were quietly uncomfortable. No one wanted to step into this minefield. For a moment, everything froze. The laughter, the chatter, the music in the background, all of it stopped. The air felt thick, suffocating, and the weight of what had just been said hung heavily over us. It was like Zoe's words had erased all the years we'd spent together, everything we'd built. All I had worked for in that moment, the toast, the effort, the hope, had just crumbled into nothing. Zoe's figure disappeared down the hallway. She didn't look back, didn't even flinch when the sound of her chair hitting the floor echoed in the silence. I wanted to chase after her, to apologize, to ask her to explain herself, but I knew it wouldn't help. Something had shifted, and I wasn't sure I could fix it anymore. I could feel my hands trembling, and I quickly shoved them in my pockets to hide the nervousness I couldn't shake. I wasn't proud of what I had said, not by any means. But I couldn't lie to myself either. The truth had been bubbling up inside me for a long time, and it was finally spilling out. Maybe it was my fault for letting it go for so long, but I couldn't take it back now. Everyone sat in awkward silence. Nobody seemed to know how to address the elephant in the room. Our guests were shifting uncomfortably in their seats, pretending like nothing had happened, but it was clear they all felt the tension too. I let out a breath, trying to regain my composure. I should go talk to her. I muttered to no one in particular, though I wasn't even sure if I believed that. One of my friends, Nathan, finally spoke up, his voice cautious. Maybe it's best to give her some space for now, man. You've been through a lot lately. I didn't respond. I didn't need his pity. What I needed was to understand what had just happened. How had we gotten here? How had everything fallen apart so quickly? Zoe's birthday should have been a fresh start for us, a way to reconnect. Instead, it felt like a point of no return. But Nathan was right about one thing. I did need space. Not just from Zoe, but from everything. I stepped out of the living room, into the hallway, where the faint sound of Zoe's footsteps echoed down the corridor. Her voice was barely audible, but I could tell she was on the phone with someone. I wanted to call out to her, to ask if we could talk, but something stopped me. A cold fear, maybe, or the realization that there was nothing more to say. I leaned against the wall, staring at the floor, the weight of everything pressing on me. What had I done? I couldn't go back, and the thought of facing her again made my stomach twist. It wasn't the first time we'd argued, but it was the first time I felt like I couldn't fix it. Like something had broken inside me, and maybe inside her, too. When she finally came back into the room, I braced myself. I didn't know if she was going to shout, cry, or just walk away completely. But Zoe was good at keeping things bottled up. She always had been. She stood in the doorway, her posture stiff, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor. She wasn't looking at me, but I could feel the heat radiating off her. "I think it's time for everyone to go," she said, her voice steady but strained. This isn't working." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. The idea of everyone leaving felt surreal, like the night was unraveling before my eyes. But I didn't argue. I didn't try to stop her. I had no right to. As our guests filed out, there was a quiet finality in their departures. No one offered any comforting words. No one reassured me it would be okay. They didn't know what to say, and I couldn't blame them. I watched as the last of them left, the door clicking shut behind them. The emptiness in the house seemed to swallow me whole. Zoe was standing by the door now, her arms still crossed. The silence between us was deafening. "I don't know what you want from me, Michael," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The anger was gone from her tone, replaced by something more distant. "You don't get to say things like that, and then expect everything to just go back to normal. It's not that simple." I took a step toward her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Zoe, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it." But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure I could believe them. There was a part of me that did mean it. A part of me that had been feeling it for so long, hidden behind a veil of denial. She shook her head slowly, almost like she was disappointed. "It doesn't matter. It's too late for apologies now." She turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkened hallway. I stood there, frozen, unable to move. The weight of her words lingered in the air. I hadn't meant to go this far, but it was too late to take it back. Too late to undo the damage. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. This wasn't just an argument. This was the beginning of something much worse. The house was quiet now. Too quiet. The kind of silence that fills up every corner, every crack, and suffocates everything. I stood in the middle of the living room, unsure of what to do next. Zoey had disappeared, and everyone else was gone. The night that was supposed to be a celebration had crumbled into nothing. I walked slowly toward the window, staring outside at the dark streets. It felt like the world had shifted somehow, like the ground beneath me had cracked open, and everything I knew was falling apart. I couldn't even remember the last time I had felt this lost. I had said something I shouldn't have, something that had been brewing inside me for months, maybe even years. It wasn't just the birthday toast. No, it went deeper than that. I had been holding on to a sinking ship, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. But how could I have known it would explode like this? The truth was, I had been waiting for a moment like this for a while, not consciously, but deep down. I had been waiting for something to wake me up, to finally break the illusion. And now it had. I heard the sound of footsteps from the hallway, soft and measured. It was Zoey. She didn't say anything at first, just stood in the doorway, watching me. I didn't turn around to face her. I couldn't. "You can't fix this, Michael," she said, her voice low and almost detached. I finally turned, meeting her gaze. Her eyes were tired, drained of the warmth they once had. There was a certain emptiness in them now, a distance I had never seen before. "I know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know how to fix it anymore." Zoey took a deep breath and walked toward the couch, sitting down slowly. She didn't look at me, didn't even move her hands from her lap. It was like she had resigned herself to this. "To us. You think this is the first time you've hurt me?" she asked, her words cutting through the silence like a knife. "I've been hurt by you for a long time, Michael. But I stayed. Because I thought we could fix it. I thought we could get back to what we were. But now, I don't know if I can do that anymore." I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't just about a fight or a disagreement anymore. This was deeper, a wound that had been festering for years. And I had been too blind to see it. "I never wanted to hurt you, Zoey. You have to believe me," I said, my voice cracking. She finally looked up at me, and for a brief second, I saw a flicker of something. Vulnerability, maybe. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "You hurt me every day, Michael. Every time you chose to ignore me. Every time you shut me out. Every time you pretended everything was okay when it wasn't. That's what hurt. That's what I couldn't take anymore." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't know how to respond. I had been so caught up in trying to fix things, to make everything perfect, that I had neglected what mattered most, the person I was supposed to care for the most. "You don't even know how much I've tried," I whispered, feeling a tear slip down my cheek. "I just didn't know how to make it right. I thought if I kept pushing, if I kept pretending, maybe it would get better. Maybe we would get better." Zoey shook her head, a bitter smile forming on her lips. "That's the problem, Michael. You thought, but you didn't listen. You didn't see what was right in front of you." She stood up slowly, as if the weight of the conversation was too much to bear. "I need space, Michael. I can't keep doing this. Not when you're so far gone." The words stung. I opened my mouth to protest, but nothing came out. What could I say? She was right. All of it. I had been too wrapped up in my own doubts and fears to even see what was happening around me. "I think it's time we figure out where we really stand," Zoey said, her voice cold but composed. She walked toward the door and paused before leaving. "I don't know if there's anything left to save, Michael. But maybe, just maybe, you'll figure it out. Or maybe I'll have to." And then she was gone. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door she had just walked through. I didn't know if she would come back. I didn't know if we could come back from this. But as the silence settled in once more, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had snapped, something in both of us. And there was no turning back now. I woke up to an empty house. The silence was suffocating. Zoey had stayed in the guest room last night, and I hadn't heard a sound from her since the argument. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for something, anything, to break. But nothing did. The stillness was unbearable. I made coffee, even though it tasted like sand in my mouth. I wasn't hungry, Wasn't interested in anything except trying to figure out how to get back what I had lost. What we had lost. I kept replaying the moments of last night in my head. Her words, her expression, the way she had turned away from me so easily, like she'd made up her mind long before I even spoke. I thought I knew Zoey. I thought I understood her better than anyone. But now, I was realizing how much I had taken her for granted, how I had assumed that no matter what, we'd make it through. It was past noon when Zoey finally appeared, stepping into the kitchen in a pair of old jeans and a hoodie, looking like she hadn't slept at all. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red-rimmed. She didn't look at me when she walked in. She just opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and leaned against the counter, as if waiting for me to say something. The tension between us was thick, like a wall I couldn't break through. "I'm not hungry," she said quietly, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, but it had an edge to it, like she was holding something back. I nodded, not knowing what else to say. I wasn't sure if she wanted me to apologize again, if she wanted me to explain myself, or if she was just waiting for me to leave her alone. Everything had changed overnight. The person I thought I knew, the one I had shared everything with, felt like a stranger now. I couldn't stand the silence anymore. "Zoey," I said, my voice trembling, "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I didn't mean what I said. But it's hard. It's hard to pretend everything's okay when it's not. You've been so distant. I don't know what to do anymore." She took a long sip from her water, her gaze never meeting mine. It was like she was somewhere else, somewhere far away. "You think I've been distant?" she finally asked, her voice low, almost flat. "Michael, you've been distant too. You've been shutting me out for months. I'm not the one who stopped trying." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but I couldn't. She was right. I had been distant. Not in the way she thought. Maybe, but I had been hiding. I had been hiding from the truth, from what I knew deep down was falling apart. "I didn't want to hurt you," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "I just didn't know how to fix us. I didn't know how to fix me." She didn't respond right away. She just stared at me, her expression unreadable. It was clear she had heard enough of the apologies, enough of the explanations. She wasn't looking for words anymore. She was looking for action, or maybe she wasn't looking at all. Maybe, deep down, she had already made up her mind. "Maybe we're just not meant to be, Michael," she said finally, her voice steady. But there was a vulnerability in it that I hadn't expected. It felt like the ground was shifting beneath me, like the floor was crumbling away. My heart pounded in my chest. "You can't mean that. We've been through too much for you to just give up on us." Zoey's eyes met mine for the first time that morning. Her gaze was intense, as if she was searching for something in me. Maybe I'm tired of holding on to something that's already gone. Maybe I'm just tired of waiting for you to wake up. It felt like I had been slapped across the face. The truth was right there, staring me in the face, and I couldn't deny it anymore. I had been taking Zoey for granted, assuming that love alone would be enough to carry us through. But it wasn't. Not this time. "I don't want to lose you," I said, my voice hoarse, desperate. "Please, Zoey, don't give up on me." She closed her eyes for a moment, as if she was weighing something inside herself. When she opened them again, the coldness was back. "I don't know if I can stay, Michael. Not when you've already checked out. Not when I don't even know who you are anymore." The words hit me harder than anything. She didn't even recognize me. The silence stretched on between us, heavy and suffocating. I felt like I was drowning in it, but no matter how much I reached out to her, I couldn't pull her back. "I'm sorry," I said again, but this time, it felt different. I wasn't just apologizing for the argument. I was apologizing for everything. For the distance. For the neglect. For the fact that I had let her slip through my fingers without even realizing it. Zoey didn't answer. She just turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, alone, with the weight of my own mistakes pressing down on me. The days after Zoey walked out of the kitchen felt like a blur. Everything was quieter, but somehow more chaotic. I could feel the weight of her absence pressing down on me at every moment. It wasn't just that she wasn't there physically. It was like she had taken a part of me with her when she left. The house felt hollow, like a shell of what it had been just a few days ago. I tried to keep myself busy, going to work, running errands, anything to keep my mind from spiraling. But no matter what I did, my thoughts kept circling back to her, to what we had lost, and to the realization that I had pushed her so far away that now, she was ready to walk out the door for good. I hadn't heard from Zoey. Not a word. No calls, no texts, not even a single message to let me know if she was okay. She had retreated into herself, and I couldn't blame her. I had done this. I had let the silence between us grow so loud that now it felt like a chasm too wide to cross. The turning point came a few days later, on a Saturday morning. I had just returned from a run, trying to clear my head. I was standing in the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water when I heard the sound of footsteps in the hallway. My heart skipped a beat, and I turned to see Zoey standing in the doorway. She looked different. Her hair was messy, and she was wearing the same hoodie she had worn the day we fought. But there was something in her eyes, something that wasn't there before. It was almost like she had finally made up her mind, like she had come to a decision, and now she was ready to confront whatever came next. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't prepared for this. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to know where this was going. But I knew one thing. I couldn't just stand there and let her walk away without trying to fix it. Zoey, I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't immediately respond. She just stood there, looking at me with an unreadable expression. It was as if she was weighing something in her mind, something she hadn't told me yet. After a long silence, she finally spoke. I think we need to talk, she said, her voice calm, but with an underlying tension. I nodded, unable to find my voice. This was it. The moment I had been dreading and hoping for at the same time. She walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table, her posture stiff but controlled. I stayed standing, unsure of where to go, what to do. It was like we were both trying to figure out how to navigate a conversation that had already gone off course. Zoey took a deep breath before she spoke again. I've been thinking a lot, Michael. About everything. About us. I didn't say anything, but inside, my heart raced. I didn't know if this was the beginning of the end, or if there was still a chance to salvage whatever was left of our relationship. I can't keep pretending that nothing's wrong, she continued, her eyes meeting mine. I can't keep putting on a smile, acting like everything's fine when it's not. I know you've been trying, but you haven't been here for a long time. You've been here physically, but not emotionally. And I've been pretending that it didn't hurt. But it does. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to say that I had been trying, that I hadn't meant to hurt her. But I knew better than to interrupt her. She needed to say this. We needed to hear it. I don't want to leave, she said, her voice faltering for the first time. But I can't keep staying in something that feels so empty. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I blinked them away. I couldn't show her that I was falling apart. Not now. I had to be strong, for both of us. Zoey, please, I said, my voice desperate. I never meant for it to be this way. I never meant for us to get to this point. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to get back to what we had. Zoey looked at me, her gaze soft but pained. Michael, you can't fix everything. Sometimes, the damage is already done. We've been drifting for so long that now it feels like we're just holding on because we're afraid to let go. Her words struck me harder than anything else she had said. She was right. I had been holding on, but I hadn't been present in the way she needed me to be. I hadn't been listening. I know I've made mistakes, I said, my voice thick with emotion. But I want to try, Zoey. I want to make things right. If there's even a chance for us, I'll do whatever it takes. She stood up then, taking a step toward me. I want that too, Michael. But I can't do it alone. You have to want it as much as I do. And right now, I'm not sure if you do. There was a long pause. I didn't know what to say. Everything I had ever wanted was standing in front of me, but I wasn't sure if it was enough anymore. Was it too late to fix things? Could we go back to the way we were, or was this just the end? I don't want to lose you, I whispered, my heart in my throat. Zoey's face softened, but there was still a sadness in her eyes. I don't want to lose you either. But sometimes, love isn't enough to fix everything. And just like that, the silence returned. We were no longer a couple trying to fix things. We were two people standing at the crossroads of a relationship that had once been everything, but was now on the edge of falling apart. The words hung between us like a heavy fog. I wanted to reach out, to hold her, to somehow make her believe me. But she was right. Love alone couldn't fix the cracks that had formed over time. Zoey took a deep breath, her eyes scanning mine, as if searching for some glimmer of hope. I don't want this to be over, Michael, but I can't pretend we're okay anymore. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the calm exterior she tried so hard to maintain. I could see it. The doubt, the fear, the frustration in her eyes. She didn't want to give up, but she also didn't want to keep fighting for something that felt broken. I stepped closer, feeling my chest tighten. I don't want it to be over either. I don't know what happened or when everything started to fall apart, but I'm still here. I'm still trying, Zoey. I know I've messed up, but I'll change. I'll do whatever it takes. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, in the softest voice, she said, "But I can't be the only one trying anymore, Michael. You've been emotionally absent for too long. And I need to know, do you still want this? Or are you just afraid to be alone?" The question hit me like a thunderclap. Was I afraid of being alone? The thought lingered, gnawing at me. I wasn't sure. I did love her, but the way she phrased it made me question everything I thought I knew. "I'm not just afraid to be alone," I said, my voice hoarse. "I want us, but I don't know how to fix what's been broken." There was a silence between us, thick with uncertainty. Zoe's eyes softened for a moment, but there was still a distance in them. "I don't know if I can wait for you to figure that out," she whispered. And there it was. The truth I had been avoiding. The moment we both knew things might not get better. The finality in her words. "I'm not asking you to wait forever," I said, stepping closer. My voice cracked. "But please, give me a chance to show you. Please don't give up on me now." Zoe's expression faltered, and for a second, I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of the woman I used to know. But it was gone almost as quickly as it appeared. "I don't know if I can believe you anymore," she admitted softly, her voice breaking. "And I'm not sure if I can trust that you'll keep trying." That was the hardest part, the part that hit me the deepest. The trust was gone, and without trust, what was left? "I can't promise that I'll have all the answers right now," I said, taking a deep breath. "But I'll promise you this. I'll fight for us. If you'll give me the chance." Zoe's eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them away quickly. "I wish I could believe that, Michael. I really do. But I'm not sure I can." I felt the weight of her words sink in. She wasn't saying no, but she wasn't saying yes either. And that limbo, that space between us, was unbearable. "I don't want to lose you," I said again, my voice thick with emotion. "Please, Zoey, don't walk away." She took a step back, shaking her head. "I don't know if I can stay anymore. I can't keep doing this. It's too much." The silence in the room was suffocating. I stood there, frozen, watching her walk toward the door. She paused before leaving, her hand on the knob. Maybe this is what we need," she said, her voice barely audible. "A little space, a little time, to figure out if we even can fix this. But I can't keep pretending that everything is fine." And with that, she left. I stood there, alone again, the weight of her words crashing down on me. I didn't know if I had lost her for good or if this was just another pause in our story. But one thing was clear. I had to figure out what I truly wanted. Because if I didn't, I knew this would be the end. The house felt colder than usual after Zoe left. I couldn't put my finger on it, but everything seemed out of place. The silence was deafening, like it was mocking me, reminding me of what I had lost. I tried to keep busy, tried to distract myself with work, but it wasn't enough. The guilt gnawed at me, eating away at every thought. How had we ended up here? What had I done to let things get so bad? For days, there was no word from Zoe. No texts, no calls. The only sound in the house was the ticking of the clock on the wall. I could feel time slipping away, but I didn't know how to stop it. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to stop it. The space between us was thick with everything we hadn't said, everything we hadn't dealt with. I thought I was ready for this, but now I wasn't so sure. One night, after another long day of pretending I was fine, I found myself sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. It wasn't even on. I was just there, not really present, not really anywhere. My phone buzzed in my hand, snapping me out of my stupor. It was a message from Zoe. I stared at the screen for a moment, almost afraid to open it. Part of me wanted to know what she had to say, but another part of me was terrified that it would be the final blow, the end of everything we had built. Taking a deep breath, I opened the message. "Can we talk? I need to know where we stand." The words hit me harder than I expected. A mix of relief and dread washed over me. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I didn't know if I was ready for it, but I couldn't let this opportunity slip away. I quickly typed a response. "Yes, let me know when." There was a pause before she replied. "How about now? I'm on my way home." I stared at the message, my heart pounding in my chest. The reality of what was happening started to sink in. Zoe was coming back, but I didn't know if it was for good or if this was the final chapter. When the door opened later that evening, Zoey stepped inside, her expression unreadable. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed with something I couldn't name. She had that same distance in her eyes, but there was something else too. A vulnerability that hadn't been there before. "Hey," I said quietly, my voice trembling slightly. I wanted to say more, but I didn't know how. What could I possibly say to make this better? She nodded, but didn't speak. For a moment, we just stood there, the air thick between us. "I've been thinking a lot," Zoey finally said, breaking the silence. "About everything. About us. And I think I know what I need to do." My heart sank. It felt like I had been holding my breath for days, and now, it was all coming out in a rush. "What do you mean?" I asked, the words barely escaping my lips. She took a deep breath, looking at the floor for a moment before meeting my eyes. "I think I've been avoiding the truth. The truth is, I don't know if we can fix this. Not right now. Not with where we are." I felt the blood drain from my face. The pain of hearing her say it out loud, the reality of it crashing over me, was unbearable. I tried to swallow the lump in my throat, but it wouldn't go away. "I don't want to hear that," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't want to believe that this is it. I don't want to believe that we've come this far, only for it to end like this." Zoe's face softened, but she didn't look away. "Michael, I'm not saying it's the end forever. But we're not the same people we were when we got together. We've changed, and not just in small ways. It's like we're strangers to each other now." Her words struck a chord deep inside me. I had felt it too, the distance, the growing gap between us. But hearing her admit it, hearing her put it into words, made it so much more real. "You're right," I said quietly, barely able to hold back the tears. "We're not the same. But that doesn't mean we can't fix it. We can find our way back." Zoey shook her head slowly, her eyes filled with sadness. "I don't know, Michael. I don't know if I can keep fighting for something that feels so far gone. I don't know if I can keep hoping for a change that might never come." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The uncertainty, the doubt, was overwhelming. I didn't know how to make her see that I was still here, that I still wanted to fight. But how could I make her believe that when she had already given so much of herself, and I had taken it all for granted? "I can't promise that everything will be perfect," I said softly, my voice almost a whisper. "But I can promise that I'll try. I'll try harder than I ever have before. If you'll give me that chance." Zoey stared at me for a long moment, her gaze unreadable. Then, with a deep sigh, she stepped forward. She didn't say anything at first, but she reached for my hand. The touch was gentle, but it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "I want to believe you, Michael," she said finally. "But I need time. I need space to figure out what I want. And I need you to understand that if this is going to work, we both have to change. I can't keep carrying this alone." I nodded, my throat tight. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes." As she turned to leave the room, she paused at the door, her back to me. "I'm not sure what happens next, but I'll need you to prove that you're still here. Not just in words, but in actions." And with that, she walked away again. I stood there, staring at the empty space where she had been. The reality of it all was starting to settle in. It wasn't over yet, but it felt like it was hanging by a thread. I didn't know if we could fix this, but I knew one thing. I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Zoey had asked for space, and I gave it to her, though every moment felt like an eternity. I spent my time reflecting on everything. Our past, the mistakes I had made, the things I should have said and done differently. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew I had to show her, not just tell her, that I was committed to making things right. It wasn't easy. Every step felt like a battle. There were moments when I thought I might lose her for good. But as the days passed, I could see small changes. Zoey was starting to open up again, little by little. She still had her walls up, but I could tell she was paying attention. She was watching my actions, my efforts, and somehow, that gave me hope. Then one evening, about a week after that tense conversation in the kitchen, Zoey came home earlier than usual. She was holding something in her hand, and her face was softer than I had seen it in days. She walked into the living room, her eyes meeting mine, and there was something in them, a glimmer of something I hadn't seen in a long time. "I've been thinking," she started, her voice steady but with a warmth I wasn't expecting. "I know things haven't been easy, and I know I've been distant, but I've realized something. I can't keep running away from what I really want. I want to try, Michael. I want to really try. My heart raced, and I stood up, unable to contain the surge of emotion I felt. Zoey, are you sure? Because I'm here. I'll do whatever it takes. She smiled softly, and the weight I had been carrying for so long seemed to lift. I know you will. But I also need to trust that this time, we'll both fight for us. I can't carry this on my own anymore. We need to be in this together. I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. We're in this together, Zoey. I promise. She stepped closer to me, holding out the small item in her hand. It was a picture frame. The photo inside was of us, taken a few years ago, when everything still felt right. Our smiles were genuine, our eyes full of love. She had kept that photo all this time. I've kept this because I didn't want to forget what we had, Zoey said softly. And I want to believe we can get back to that. We just need time. And we need to be honest with each other. I took the photo from her and held it in my hands, feeling a weight lift off my chest. For the first time in weeks, I felt like we had a chance. A real chance. I'll make this work, Zoey, I said, my voice filled with conviction. I'll be the man you need me to be. I'll fight for us, every single day. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. The distance between us had shrunk, but there was still work to be done. It wasn't going to be perfect, but I knew we had something worth fighting for. I wasn't ready to give up on us. Zoey reached up, brushing a tear from my cheek. Me neither, she whispered. And then, for the first time in a long time, we kissed. It wasn't desperate or urgent, but gentle, slow, as if we were both savoring the moment. It felt like a promise. A promise that no matter what happened, we would keep trying. Together.